Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a shortcut, really getting into the mind and, the career of an actor whose filmography reads like an exercise in genre whiplash. William, or Bill, Pullman. If you're looking for the blueprint on how a performer can successfully pivot between, say, prestige theater, era-defining sci-fi, really unsettling psychological thrillers, and deep TV drama, well, this is your deep dive.
Exactly. And our listener, I think, is curious about the mechanism, right? How do you get that longevity and that kind of range?
Right.
When you look at his work, from Lone Star and Spaceballs all the way to the complex detective Harry Ambrose in The Sinner, or even a character in a Pulitzer Prize-winning play about, well, pretty controversial stuff.
Yeah.
You realize this isn't just an actor. This is kind of a chameleon, but one armed with a really serious academic foundation.
And that foundation, honestly, that's the first thing that jumped out at us in the sources. It completely changes the context of his entire career, doesn't it?
It really does.
He didn't start professionally as a struggling actor waiting tables. He started as a professor. He actually had a career in academia before he even made his film debut in Ruthless People back in '86.
Yeah.
That contrast is just staggering. Professor to President Whitmore.
It really provides the intellectual scaffolding for everything that came after. So let's start with the basics, what the sources tell us. Bill Pullman, born December 17th, 1953, in Hornell, New York.
Okay.
And his upbringing, interestingly, was kind of rooted in the sciences and care. His father, James Pullman Jr., was a physician.
Oh, wow.
And his mother, Johanna Wilhelmina Pullman, she was a nurse.
That's an interesting professional backdrop medicine. The science for someone who would eventually, dedicate their life to the art.
It is, yeah. But looking at his academic path, it's clear he didn't just stumble into theater. He didn't approach it lightly at all.
No.
Not at all. He graduated from Hornell High School in '71. Then he attended the State University of New York at Delhi, SUNY. Then got his Bachelor of Arts degree in theater studies from SUNY Oneonta in 1975.
Right.
But he committed even further. He earned his Master of Fine Arts degree, an MFA, from the University of Massachusetts Amherst in 1980.
Okay, an MFA. That's a terminal degree in the arts, right? It's not just a certificate.
Exactly.
It really prepares you for teachings, for pedagogy, and deep theoretical understanding of the craft. It means he spent, 5 years post-undergrad just intensely studying the craft, the text, the technical side of drama. How do you think that rigorous background informs his approach to a role? Say, compared to an actor who just, came up purely through auditions.
Well, I think it creates a real commitment to text and structure.
Yeah.
A classically trained actor, especially with an MFA, often understands the anatomy of a play or a screenplay in a way that lets them move between genres almost seamlessly. They get why the comedy works or how the structure of a tragedy is built.
What's the mechanics?
Exactly, the mechanics. He wasn't just learning lines, he was learning dramatic mechanics. It's a different level of engagement, I think.
And he immediately put that education to use, didn't he, back in the classroom?
He did. He taught theater at SUNY Delhi, and then critically, he was an adjunct professor at Montana State University's School of Film and Photography. That's in Bozeman, Montana.
And this wasn't just like a brief stint, right? The sources suggest he was pretty established in a teaching career.
Yeah, that seems to be his initial professional identity. He was grading papers, leading workshops, probably directing student productions. And here is where the story takes that wonderful pivot right there in Bozeman. The key anecdote, the one that keeps coming up, is that his own students at MSU, they were the ones who persuaded him that his talent needed a wider stage. They convinced him to pursue film roles. This would have been mid-1980s.
Wow. Imagine that confidence boost. The people you're instructing are basically saying, no, you're the one who should be out there doing this.
Right.
That's the real aha moment, isn't it? That launches the career we know. It really suggests there was something magnetic, undeniable about his presence, even just standing in front of a whiteboard.
Absolutely. And that encouragement, it seems, acted as the final push out of academia, back into performance full-time.
So he makes the decision.
Yeah, and once he made that decision in the 80s, the sources show he focused on working with theater companies, first in New York, then Los Angeles.
Okay, so back to the stage first.
Right, which kind of proves he respected the craft enough to return to basics, right?
Yeah.
Boning that stage technique before jumping straight into the commercial world of film.
It's the perfect, slow burn start. He spent basically a decade building up that intellectual and performance muscle before Hollywood even really knew his name. And that preparation, it just set him up perfectly for what turned out to be a truly chaotic but brilliant decade of versatility.
Yeah.
The 1990s.
Yeah, the 90s were huge for him. His film debut itself was pretty striking, Ruthless People in 1986. And he was immediately alongside heavy hitters. Danny DeVito, Bette Midler. He played Earl Mott.
Yeah, I remember that.
It showed he could absolutely hold his own in high-stakes comedy right out of the gate.
And he didn't waste any time moving into a leading role, did he?
Not at all. Just 1 year later, 1987, he's lone star in Mel Brooks's, magnificent sci-fi parody, Spaceballs.
Oh, Spaceballs, a classic.
Absolute classic. And it's a cultural touchstone now, but it required him to be the perfect straight man, didn't it?
Totally.
The classic heroic archetype, but who's also completely absurd because of the world around him.
Yeah.
He's the foundation, really, that makes all the Mel Brooks insanity work.
He anchors it.
He anchors it. And this is where his range immediately becomes evident, because the very next year, 1988, he's in The Accidental Tourist.
Sensitive drama.
Right. And The Serpent and the Rainbow, which is a chilling horror film directed by Wes Craven with Zake Smoke.
Okay, hold on. We're talking about a performer who can pivot from spoofing Han Solo to a serious, voodoo-fueled horror film in less than a year.
Yep.
That's Pullman. And that genre jumping, that really became the engine of his 1990s career. You see it everywhere.
Like what?
Well, early 90s. He's Brian Denton, the kind-hearted journalist in Newsies in 92.
Okay, the musical.
Yeah. And then Bob Hinson in the beloved baseball classic, A League of Their Own, same year, 92.
Right, opposite Gina Davis.
Mm-hmm. And he wasn't afraid to be part of an ensemble, often supporting A-list talent, which I think speaks to maybe his humility or dedication to good projects over just pure ego.
Yeah, that makes sense. Then came that streak where he really kind of defined the role of the sympathetic romantic foil, didn't he?
Oh, yeah. He was Walter Jackson in Sleepless in Seattle in 93, the guy Meg Ryan's engaged to.
Futurologist.
Yes, him.
Yeah.
And then critically, he was Jack Callahan in While You Were Sleeping in 95, opposite Sandra Bullock.
Yes. The other brother.
Exactly. He had this niche, and he really perfected it. He played the dependable, maybe slightly wounded, but totally charming guy you were rooting for.
Even though you kind of knew Meg Ryan or Sandra Bullock is probably going to end up with the other lead, Tom Hanks or Bill Pullman's character's brother.
Right. But he carried the emotional weight of those romantic comedies in a way.
He really did. And that ability to convey accessibility, that inherent goodness, it set him up perfectly for the family market, too. He played Dr. James Harvey in Casper in 1995.
Oh, yeah, the ghost therapist.
Yeah, the successful family fantasy film. So he'd basically mastered the mainstream by the mid-90s.
Okay. And then came 1996, the role that just cemented his face in the global consciousness forever. President Thomas J. Whitmore in Independence Day.
Boom. Yeah. That role is it's a masterclass in aspirational political leadership on screen.
Isn't it, though?
It's the highest expression, maybe, of the American heroic ideal. A leader who not only gives that incredible speech, but also puts on a flight suit and goes into battle.
Today, we celebrate our Independence Day. Chills. Still gives me chills.
Me too. And that character, he provided this crucial moral anchor for a massive, massive blockbuster. It's really no surprise he got an OFTA nomination for Best Sci-Fi Fantasy Horror Actor for that 96 performance.
Definitely deserved.
It just transcended the genre, didn't it? It became cultural shorthand for rallying, bravery, for leadership.
Okay, so here's the really interesting part for me, and where we should maybe slow down the analysis a bit.
Okay.
He's reached that pinnacle, right? Global recognition, huge commercial success with Independence Day. Most actors would probably chase the sequel or the next biggest paycheck.
Sure, that's the usual path.
But Pullman pivots, like 180 degrees. He goes straight to work with David Lynch on the highly surreal, definitely non-commercial masterpiece, Lost Highway in 1997. He plays the tormented musician Fred Madison.
It's a stunning career choice, isn't it? Almost like a deliberate artistic counterstatement.
Totally.
Think about it. The emotional and intellectual demands of playing President Whitmore, where everything is externalized, it's clear, it's heroic. That's the complete inverse of playing Fred Madison, where everything is internal, it's fractured, it's based on surreal, unreliable perception.
And Lynch demands so much from an actor, doesn't he? You have to commit totally to that psychological labyrinth, even when the narrative makes, well, no conventional sense half the time.
Exactly.
To go from the most famous, maybe most accessible role in the world to Fred Madison, a guy who may or may not have murdered his wife, whose whole reality is just disintegrating.
Mm-hmm.
It shows a kind of total disregard for maintaining a bankable public image.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe just a stronger desire for the artistic challenge.
I think the latter. It proved that his MFA commitment, that academic rigor, it was real. He wasn't just chasing fame, he was chasing the most challenging text available, the most interesting directors.
Yeah.
This decision, for me, truly defines him as an actor who's dedicated to the art form over just the commercial outcome.
And he kept balancing these extremes, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He starred as the lead detective, Daryl Zero, in that clever, quirky noir comedy Zero Effect in '98.
Oh, I love Zero Effect. Underrated.
Totally underrated. And then he closes the century with, a more standard creature feature, Lake Placid, in 1999.
Right. Fighting the giant crocodile.
Yeah. He could just shift gears faster than a Formula One racer. It's incredible.
So he had essentially done it all on screen by the end of the 90s. Romantic lead, check. Comedic hero, check. Action star president, check. Surrealist, nightmare fuel, check.
Pretty much, yeah.
So where does a versatile actor like that go next when you've hit all those screen genres?
Well, he goes back to the beginning, in a way. Back to the stage, which is where that academic training we talked about really, really shines.
That's right. As we move into the 21st century, his stage career stops being just like a footnote and becomes a major highlight, totally equal to his screen work.
Absolutely. And we have to talk about his collaboration with Edward Albee, especially his starring role in The Goat, or Who is Sylvia, on Broadway in 2002.
Okay, yeah. We mentioned the awards earlier, Tony, for Best Play, Pulitzer for Drama.
Huge awards.
But the awards don't even tell the whole story here, do they?
Yeah.
This play isn't just critically demanding, it's thematically explosive.
That's a good word for it. Pullman starred as Martin, this successful architect who confesses to his wife, played by the amazing Mercedes Roll, that he has fallen in love with and is having an affair with a goat.
I mean, wow. That's where you see true intellectual bravery, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
To stand on a Broadway stage, night after night, dealing with themes of bestiality, betrayal, the complete collapse of a family.
Yeah.
That takes immense technical skill, sure, but also incredible emotional fortitude.
Yeah. This is definitely not the charming Jack Callahan from While You Were Sleeping.
Not even close. This role demanded he confront one of the last remaining major social taboos right there in front of a live audience, 8 shows a week.
And the risk paid off, artistically speaking. The play itself won the Tony, the Drama Desk, the Pulitzer Prize for Drama. And his performance as Martin, the central, tormented figure, earned him that Drama Desk Award nomination for Outstanding Actor in a Play.
That's top-tier recognition. Achieved through pure, unadulterated commitment to really challenging, difficult drama.
And he clearly thrived on Albee's challenging, often non-naturalistic dialogue, because he returned to Albee's work later, appearing in Peter and Jerry off-Broadway in 2007.
Right, and got another Drama Desk nomination for that one too, didn't he?
It did, yeah, his second. And he also tackled David Mamet's notoriously intense two-person drama, Oleana, in 2009. He starred opposite Julia Stiles.
Oh, Oleana, that play is brutal. About the power dynamics between a professor and a student.
Yeah, it's the ultimate acting workout, really. Mamet's rhythmic dialogue, the intense verbal sparring. It's relentless.
And even though that run was relatively short, I think it closed after about 65 performances. It still demonstrated his consistent desire to tackle the hardest material American theater has to offer. He keeps going back to the big guns.
He does. And years later, he was starring in Arthur Miller's classic tragedy, All My Sons, at the Old Vic Theatre in London in 2019. He constantly returns to the source material, to the great drama.
It's impressive. But his commitment to the craft isn't just limited to acting, is it? The sources also highlight his work as a creative writer and even a director.
That's right. It reveals this comprehensive artistic curiosity he has. Tucked in among his early 2000s work is the TV film The Virginian from 2000, which he not only starred in, but also directed and produced, and it won a Western Heritage Award. So he clearly has an affinity for that genre, too.
Yeah, the Montana connection probably helps there.
Probably does. But the most fascinating piece of his writing portfolio, for me anyway, is his play, Exhibition 6. It premiered in San Francisco back in 2007.
And this connects back to his sci-fi and drama interests in a really unique way, right?
In a very unique way. The subject matter is a really high concept, but also intensely dramatic. It's based on the real-life International Space Station mission, Expedition 6.
Okay, I remember this. The sources confirmed the crew was actually in orbit when the space shuttle Columbia was tragically destroyed during re-entry in February 2003.
Exactly. And that disaster grounded the entire U.S. space shuttle program for a while. which meant the ISS crew, who were expecting to rotate out and come home soon, they were forced to stay on the station for an extra 2 months.
Stranded, essentially.
Pretty much, until a Russian Soyuz transport could be arranged to bring them home. His play examines that immense psychological strain, the isolation of a crew stranded above the world, contemplating their reliance on, former rivals, the Russians,
Yeah.
and their own mortality after witnessing such a profound tragedy from space.
Wow. That tells you a lot about his mind, doesn't it? That he operates on these two levels. As a performer, embodying characters, and as a storyteller drawn to these real-life crises that test the absolute limits of human endurance.
It really does. And it also kind of explains his dedication to fostering new talent. The sources mention he serves as a jury member for Filmaka.
What's Filmaka?
It's a platform that supports undiscovered filmmakers. So in a way, he's paying forward the encouragement his own students gave him all those years ago.
That's a nice full circle element. Okay, now let's pivot to his television dominance in the 2010s. Because this is where that dark undercurrent, maybe informed by his academic background and stage work, really came to the fore.
Yeah, he definitely traded the romantic comedy mantle for the deeply complex, often morally ambiguous anti-hero on TV.
And the initial shock, I think, for a lot of people came with Torchwood. Miracle Day in 2011.
Oh, yeah. He played Oswald Danes, a convicted pedophile and child killer, across 8 episodes.
I mean, that is a direct, jarring break from his public persona up to that point.
Completely.
To take on a character of such just moral repugnance,
Yeah.
especially after years of playing the good guy or the romantic lead, it requires a total professional reset, doesn't it? It's a risk. It could alienate a whole fan base.
It was absolutely a conscious choice, I think, to demonstrate that incredible range. And you know what? It worked. That performance was widely acclaimed. It earned him a Saturn Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor on Television. It proved he could inhabit the grotesque, the truly disturbing, with conviction and subtlety, without falling into caricature.
And in true Pullman fashion, the whiplash continued.
Of course it did.
He immediately went from playing a convicted child killer to returning to the role of the president.
Yep. Though, admittedly, in a very different tone. This was President Dale Gilchrist in the comedy series 1600 Penn that ran from 2012 to 2013.
Only Bill Pullman could navigate that kind of tonal chasm without giving the audience psychological vertigo. It's amazing.
It really is. But the defining TV role of his recent career, I think we'd agree, has to be Detective Harry Ambrose in the USA Network mystery series The Sinner.
Oh, absolutely. 4 seasons, right?
4 seasons, yeah. And this is where all the threads of his career seem to converge. The rigorous textual analysis from his academic background, the quiet intensity honed on stage, and that ability to portray profound internal trauma we saw glimpses of even in his earlier work.
Yeah, Detective Ambrose is just defined by his quietness, isn't he? His relentless pursuit of the why behind the crime, not just the who or the how.
Exactly. And his own barely contained emotional damage, which unfolds across the seasons. The role is so much less about action and much more about subtle reactions, psychological excavation, both of the suspect and himself.
It's the perfect maturation, maybe, of his subtle acting style. We're watching him absorb and process trauma, rather than just, solving a puzzle like a typical TV detective.
And that highly nuanced approach garnered him multiple nominations. Critics' Choice Television Awards, Screen Actors Guild Awards, another Saturn nomination.
Rightfully so.
The ability to anchor such a complex, character-driven mystery across 4 seasons is just a testament to the depth of preparation and thought he brings to every part.
And he continues to challenge himself with high-profile, demanding material. Most recently, playing the convicted South Carolina attorney Alex Murdaugh in the 2023 2-part Lifetime series, Murdaugh Murders, the movie.
Right. Another one Rick from the headlines. Again, tackling a really complex, morally ambiguous figure who dominated the news cycle, demanding a performance that felt both familiar, because we saw so much of the real guy, but also deeply unsettling.
He never seems to pick the easy route, does he?
Never.
So we've tracked the academic rigor, the massive professional versatility, the artistic commitment to stage and screen, but who is the man balancing all these extremes?
Yeah, the sources give us some great insight into the anchors in his life, his family, his ranch, and also a surprising physical challenge he overcame early on.
Let's start with family. His family life seems deeply rooted in the arts as well. He's married to Tamara Hurwitz, who is a modern dancer, and they've successfully passed that creative baton to their 3 children. Lewis Pullman, their son, is also a rapidly rising actor doing great work.
He really is.
Their daughter, Misa Pullman, is a singer-songwriter. And they also have another son, Jack, It sounds like an environment just steeped in performance and creative expression.
It's pretty rare, actually, to see that level of multi-generational success in the arts. It really suggests their home environment must foster a kind of disciplined creativity.
Yeah. But let's talk about something else the sources mention, a detail that's often overlooked, but might be critical to understanding his physical performance style.
Okay.
There's a unique biographical detail about an injury he sustained when he was just 21.
Ah, right. The sources confirm he suffered a pretty severe head injury. It was from a fall during a play rehearsal.
Yeah, and the lasting physical consequence was the loss of his sense of smell
He lost it.
and also the loss of feeling in his left elbow.
Now, that kind of physical impairment, especially losing a major sense like smell, it kind of forces a performer to rely more heavily on other things, right? Visual cues, nonverbal communication.
That's an interesting thought.
It's an intellectual challenge, in a way, that might have subtly contributed to the intense, internalized nature of roles like Detective Ambrose, who relies so much on acute observation of others. And you could also speculate, maybe, that surviving that kind of physical trauma so young, perhaps, fed into the determination, the resilience required to excel in the really demanding world of acting.
It definitely speaks to his resilience, yeah. And speaking of grounding forces, we absolutely have to discuss his dual life out in the American West.
Ah, the ranch.
Right, he co-owns a cattle ranch with his brother in Montana near a town called Whitehall, and he lives there part-time.
That Montana connection, it traces all the way back to his adjunct professor days at Montana State University, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It seems vital to him. How do you think ranching, which is, physically demanding, it's analog, it's seasonal, how does that act as an antidote to the high-pressure, often artificial world of Hollywood sets?
Oh, it has to be an essential counterbalance. I mean, imagine spending months inhabiting the mind of a character like Alex Murdaugh or the deeply troubled Fred Madison in Lost Highway.
Yeah, intense.
You need some radical external force to pull you back to reality, right? Ranching demands present moment physical attention. You're mending fences, managing animals, dealing with the weather.
Grounding work.
Totally. It forces him to turn off that internal psychological analysis that acting requires. It's a different kind of focus.
And that connection to Montana, it's been recognized too. Montana State University, the very place where his students convinced him to pursue acting in the first place, they awarded him an honorary doctorate in 2018.
That's a beautiful validation of the whole journey, isn't it?
It really is. And he maintains other academic links too. He serves on the board of trustees at Alfred University back in New York State, which also awarded him an honorary doctorate in 2011. So he never fully cut the ties to his teaching and learning roots.
That's great. And just to round out the human element, because it's mentioned, we should note his deep personal commitment to the Buffalo Bills, the football team.
Ah, yes. The Bills Mafia has a member in President Whitmore.
It's that small detail, isn't it, that grounds the iconic actor in a very specific, relatable, passionate fandom.
Yeah. And all this leads us to the final and maybe the most poignant piece of recent news that confirms his enduring legacy. This upcoming full-circle moment with Spaceballs.
Right, yeah. The sources announced this in June 2025. He will reprise his role as Lone Star in the sequel. It's scheduled for 2027.
After all these years.
I know. But this is more than just a nostalgic sequel grab, isn't it? This feels like a landmark moment. He returns to the role that defined his early success, decades later. And the sources confirm he will be co-starring with his own son, Lewis Pullman.
It's the ultimate passing of the torch, isn't it? A literal bridging of generations within the same fictional universe.
Yeah.
The professor who was pushed by his students to pursue film is now the patriarch, returning to his roots and guiding his own son in the very genre that launched his career. It's kind of perfect. Hashtag outro.
So if we try to synthesize this whole deep dive into Bill Pullman's journey, what we really find is just this astonishing commitment to intellectual rigor, first of all, and then artistic challenge.
Yeah.
He moved from earning an MFA back in 1980 and teaching at places like SUNY and Montana State University to becoming the iconic President Whitmore. And ultimately, a critically acclaimed detective and stage actor who just never settled for the predictable roles.
His core mechanism for longevity, I think, is that continuous commitment to being a learner. He just keeps adapting his craft.
Right.
Moving seamlessly from the high comedy of Spaceballs to the absolute intensity of Edward Albee's controversial Pulitzer-winning stage work, and then embracing the challenging, dark complexity of television in shows like The Sinner and Torchwood. That willingness to continuously seek out roles entirely outside his established comfort zone, whether that zone was romantic lead or, morally repugnant killer, that seems to be his enduring hallmark.
When you look at his entire career laid out, you just see this sequence of deliberate risks, don't you?
You really do.
He chose Lynch right after Independence Day. He chose to tackle zoophilia on a Broadway stage after Sleepless in Seattle. He chose a child killer role after years of being America's charming, reliable, good guy.
Yeah. And that adaptability, that constant seeking, is what makes the forthcoming Spaceballs sequel actually feel relevant, not just nostalgic.
Right. What does it mean for an actor to revisit a defining, beloved role like Lone Star so many decades later, not just for the fans, which is great, but as a direct creative collaboration with his own son?
It elevates the whole project, doesn't it? From simple nostalgia to a real statement on artistic legacy.
Yeah.
That multi-generational partnership, the professor turned patriarch, guiding the next generation in the universe that defined his own youth, that might just be the most defining and honestly the most appealing element of his continuing story.
It leaves us with a final provocative thought, maybe for you, the listener, to explore. Considering his extensive education, the academic background, and the huge risks he took on both stage and screen, which of Pullman's career decisions required the greater intellectual or emotional bravery?
Ooh, good question.
Was it committing to the deep psychological demands of David Lynch's Lost Highway, plunging into that surreal darkness? Or was it the sheer courage required to stand on a Broadway stage night after night and tackle the intensely controversial, taboo subject matter of the goat?
That's a tough one. Both required immense guts, just in different ways.
A question worth mulling over until we see Lone Star and his son fly again. That's all the time we have for this deep dive.